The Victoria Cross is the highest award that can be provided to any Australian serviceman or woman for their valour. It is a very serious award. And as Prime Minister and as a government, we have a very special responsibility to ensure that the integrity of the Victoria Cross is upheld for all of those who have been honoured by having bestowed upon them that award, and all the others that will. And so it is not done lightly that a recommendation would be made for a Victoria Cross contemporaneously, which of the 100 VCs that have been awarded to Australians, that has been the case in all of those circumstances. The service, the actions undertaken by that individual has been the subject of recommendations that have come from those who were there at the time and those commanders who made the relevant recommendations, and this was done contemporaneously. Our system, though, does provide, in exceptional circumstances, where there has been instances of maladministration or where new evidence has been brought forward, for higher awards to be considered in those circumstances. And it has certainly been the case in relation to Ordinary Seaman Teddy Sheehan that this has been a case that issues have arisen now over some time. And it is also the case that this case has been the subject of a series of reviews and panels. And the challenge that the government was faced with was that we had two findings of equal standing from two reviews, neither related to each other, that had concluded different results. And so the government was presented with conflicting evidence. Now, you don't go around handing out VCs on the basis of popularity or sentiment. Certainly in cases that involve events of many, many years ago, and in this case, the 1st of December 1942. We must be careful to guard against arrogance, that we today can stand in the shoes of those of all those years ago and pretend to know that we know those events better than those who were dealing with acts of bravery that today's generation, except for those who've served, could not imagine. That said, the opportunity we have is the process we have to uphold the integrity and ensure that justice is done to these incredibly brave actions. So, when presented with the findings of the tribunal review, we had to address this matter of conflict between that review and the comprehensive one done in 2013 that had come to a different conclusion. And the responsibility of making a recommendation to Her Majesty, in order for that to be successful, would need to be able to demonstrate the highest bar being set for such a recognition in the case of Ordinary Seaman Teddy Sheehan. And so I asked Dr Nelson, given his extensive experience, not just most recently as the most outstanding head of the War Memorial that we've seen since its founder, but also because of his role as a former Defence Minister, a long-standing member of Cabinet, to draw together an expert panel comprising Mr Bennett, who, as a former Solicitor General of the Commonwealth, together with the former head of the Prime Minister and Cabinet, Dr Shergold, and Brad Manera, an outstanding historian from New South Wales, military historian. I tasked them to tell us, to reconcile the conflicts in these two positions that had come forward, and in particular to determine the issue of whether new evidence had been established that would enable a recommendation to be made to that end. And I received that report at the end of July, and the report found as follows: that there is compelling new evidence in support of higher recognition for Sheehan, that Sheehan was done a substantial injustice in consideration of his actions in the original decision-making period in 1942 to 1943, and Sheehan's courageous sacrifice of his life to save his shipmates makes him eligible for the Victoria Cross for Australia, and the highest level of recognition should be accorded in this exceptional case. I have accepted these findings, and I have so written to the Governor-General on the basis of the recommendation received to me from the Minister Defence on the basis of this review. And these matters are now before Her Majesty, and we would be hopeful of what would come back as a contented response from Her Majesty. It is incredibly important we hold this to the highest bar. I am very pleased that the process that we've followed removes any doubt, certainly in my mind, and any doubt, I believe, in terms of our knowledge of these events and what should be done. Any ambiguity that existed before, if that had been allowed to prevail by acting hastily, that could have undermined the recommendation that we had made. So I can now make this recommendation confidently on the basis of the process that we've followed. I want to thank two people in particular, apart from, of course, Dr Nelson and the members of his expert panel. I want to thank Gavin Pearce, who, as the member for Braddon and also an ex-serviceman, provided important advice about getting the balance right of protecting the integrity of the VC, but also to ensure that these issues were dealt with by a proper process, and that there could be no doubt either on any potential recommendation of an award of the VC for Teddy Sheehan, or indeed anyone else who had been awarded with the VC. He provided important advice, as particularly an ex-serviceman. I also want to thank the many others who have been involved in this important process over a long period of time. I want to thank the family of Teddy Sheehan for their patience and their forbearance, and I'm sure they'll be very pleased about this result today. I also want to thank a good friend and a former colleague here in the Federal Parliament, Guy Barnett, for the way that he engaged with this process. Guy has never pursued this issue as a matter of popular sentiment. He has pursued it as a matter of justice, and I want to thank him for the way he engaged with me to ensure that we could properly address the outstanding issues that needed to be addressed in order to make this recommendation possible. But I'm very thankful to Dr Nelson and his full panel, and I'd ask him to make some comments on these matters.